It's trending right now. And that is how people have lost interest in just about everything. They're feeling tired, uninspired, disconnected, like life just isn't fun anymore. There are many reasons why our parents, our grandparents, and our great-grandparents had a better life than we have today. So many things have changed over the years that have contributed to us not feeling good and just feeling like the joy has been sucked out of life. Today we're exploring what has changed and why those changes have so negatively affected us. Knowledge is power, so if we can become more aware of these things, then we can recover what was lost in small ways and take back the life that we were meant to live and start feeling better. The inspiration for this video came from this book, The Lost Art of Living, by Leah Ellen. And you can find Leah also on YouTube at her channel, Faithful Legacy. I'm going to be quoting from her book and paraphrasing based on my understanding of what she said in this book. And I'm also going to be adding my own comments, my own examples, and some information from other sources as well. As I was working on this script, God led me to a video on the YouTube channel, The Buried Record, which mentioned the first change that I'm going to talk about, the first reason why we don't feel good. And that is we don't use the healing medicine that God gave us. I wasn't expecting this to be part of the video. It just popped up. God obviously wanted me to add this to this topic. It's not from the book. So I'm going to give you a quick history lesson, and I hope you'll stay with me here because this is very interesting, and this is not the kind of history that you would find in the history books that you went to school, that you read. In 1909, the Rockefellers bought every pharmacy chain in America, and within a decade, the shelves looked nothing like they had before. The herbs, the tinctures, the bark powders, the mineral compounds, and the homeopathic remedies that filled American drugstores for over a century, all of that vanished, and in its place came petroleum-derived synthetics, patented chemicals, and a brand new word, pharmaceuticals. Now, the people who pulled this off, they were not doctors and they were not healers. They were oil refiners. And by 1925, that same family, the Rockefellers, came to control the medical schools, medical journals, hospitals, and the definition of what counted as medicine in the United States. Anything that didn't come from a Rockefeller-funded laboratory was relabeled as quackery, witchcraft, or fraud. Doctors who refused to prescribe the new chemical drugs lost their licenses. That's a brief history of how the enemy managed to wipe out the healing medicines that God provided for us in nature. What is known today as Big Pharma is more about profits than healing. And it is a fact that hundreds of thousands of people die each year from adverse reactions to prescription drugs. Now, I was one who did not die, but I was neurologically damaged by a prescription drug called Lupron, which I took to manage the pain of endometriosis. It messed up my hormones, and hormones control just about every system in your body. So I was a bit of a mess, and I ended up in the hospital. I lost my job. I had to quit. I couldn't work, and I ended up having to have surgery. So just by taking a drug, my entire life was turned upside down. And if I could go back in time, I would instead try to manage the pain and the inflammation of that disease with natural remedies, which I have since learned about. You know, things like turmeric, ginger, polyphenols, castor oil packs, avoiding inflammatory foods. All those things will bring down inflammation. Also, for pain, I could have turned to things like white willow bark, and there are other things in nature that help with pain. If you want to learn more about natural remedies, I would suggest going to Herbal Healer Academy, and you can find them at herbalhealer.com. You can both purchase natural remedies there and learn how to use them. It's something we all should know. I am still dealing with the side effects of a prescription drug that I took 20 years ago. And I did the research. I know I'm not alone. There are many other women out there who were also messed up by this drug. Some of them had to go on disability because they could no longer function at work. So it is my opinion that one of the reasons we don't feel good in America is because we traded natural God-given remedies for man-made petroleum-derived synthetic prescription drugs with harmful side effects. And anyone who has seen a drug commercial and hears that long list of horrible things that could happen to you if you take this drug, that pretty much makes my point. The second reason why we don't feel good and life isn't fun is the changes in our environment. In this book, The Lost Art of Living, the author says that the enemy of our souls has pulled beauty from this world. And she says that when you are designed for beauty, you need beauty to thrive. She talks about a time when even the most ordinary things were made to be beautiful. Today, we're surrounded by ugly things that are more convenient than beautiful. She says, even everyday things, thermoses, sewing kits, school desks, were made with care. There was weight to them, detail, and dignity. Now it's all flat lines and fiberboard, mass-produced furniture that peels after a year, plastic tools that break. If I'm honest, I can't stand it. It's cookie-cutter neighborhoods with little room to play, fluorescent lights and gray cubicles and synthetic everything. The clothes are made of plastic, the colors of things have been dulled, everything has been streamlined, standardized, and scrubbed clean of its craftsmanship and personality. I've noticed that you can't even get a decent ending to a movie anymore. That is so true. I've been saying that for a long time. I get so mad when this ending comes that just doesn't seem to be an ending. It just leaves you hanging, and it's frustrating. We used to eat with silver and serve with clay. Now it's plastic and peel-off lids, fast, disposable, and quite frankly, it's ugly. I suppose it would be easier if this erosion of beauty were limited to aesthetics, but it goes even deeper than that. When the world around us grows uglier and the human soul grows wearier. We were not made for blinking screens and metal boxes. We were made for trees and light and warmth and melody. Something in us starts to break when we live too long without those things. So the author asks in the book, what do we do when the world around us no longer reflects what we were made for? And she answers that question by suggesting ways to bring more beauty into our daily lives. And we can start with our homes. That's the one place where it should be a peaceful, beautiful sanctuary for the whole family. I'm just going to inject my opinion here. I've heard of studies done. You know, a chaotic environment messes with our minds in ways we don't realize. It can cause depression. It can cause anxiety. Like I said, studies have been done to prove this. So, does your home make you feel good? Does it bring a sense of peace when you walk in the door? Does it bring peace to your senses? If it doesn't, what can you do to change that? How can you make it more beautiful and peaceful? There are some great suggestions in the book. I'm not going to get into her suggestions. I have so much other stuff to cover. I highly recommend reading this book for yourself. But I am going to read a quote that really landed in my heart. And that is, I found out that there is actually a word for that ache you sometimes feel when you see something old and lovely, a melody, a candlelit room, a woman in a flowing linen apron humming over a steaming pot on the stove. It's called anemoia. It is nostalgia for a time you've never known. However, just maybe you have indeed known it. Not in this life, but in your design, in the deepest parts of you, in the reality of Eden, in that quiet imprint of eternity God placed within you, outside of time and space. I felt it too. Sometimes when I touch an antique, the smooth curve of carved wood, the tiny hand-sewn stitches on a yellowed quilt. Sometimes when I sit by a fire with nothing but the sound of wind and my own breath. Sometimes it's in the melody of an old hymn that loops like a memory through a dusty room. My heart will simultaneously leap and sink, like it's being reminded of something I never lived through, but was always connected to. I read that to my daughter, and she said, I know that feeling. And I know that feeling too. I had no idea there was a word for it. It's a longing, just this longing for something more simple, more beautiful in our lives. So there's also not just our indoor environment, but our outdoor environment, which we have less control of, but we need to be aware of these changes because they have been tremendous. I was with a friend recently, and I was telling her about this constant sinus drainage that I was dealing with. And she said immediately, yeah, me too. It's all these chemicals they're spraying in the sky. Now, if you think chemtrails are a conspiracy theory, you've probably done zero research because the proof is out there. There have been whistleblowers that have come forward that used to work in these labs where these chemicals and heavy metals are made that are being sprayed into our skies. And also there's an obvious difference between the white trail in the sky left by a passenger plane versus the white trail of a chemtrail that's loaded with heavy metals and chemicals. And that is the white trail left behind a passenger plane remains skinny and it eventually disappears. The white trail behind a chemical plane loaded and spraying chemicals, it will not disappear, but instead it will grow wider and bigger, and it just remains as a haze in the sky, and it just sticks there. So that's the difference. You are being daily poisoned by chemicals and heavy metals every day, and your great-grandparents were not. And that's one reason why you feel like crap. So start watching the sky and do some research if you really believe that's all a conspiracy theory. Another change, electromagnetic fields from cell phone towers, smart meters, and cell phones. To make this point, I'm going to read the warning that is placed on cell phone towers. I don't suggest you get close enough to read anything like this. You need to stay as far away from them as you can get, but the warning says, this is a 5G cell tower. The signals emitted by this tower are damaging to humans, animals, and plants. Frequencies emitted by this tower can be as high as 100, I think it's gigahertz, GHz, and exceed recommended FCC exposure limits. Damaging exposure can occur up to several hundred feet from this device. Exposure can cause headaches, fatigue, insomnia, brain fog, tinnitus, vision problems, flu-like symptoms, or muscle and nervous system problems. So I try to stay off my phone as much as possible. I'm not scrolling as much as I used to. I found that I can live without it. And I never hold my phone up to my ear. And when I carry my phone in my handbag, it's encased in a protective covering. These electromagnetic frequencies, they're one of the reasons why we don't feel good. And oh, I forgot to bring a book with me. It's by Suzanne Summers. It's called Toxic. I wanted to show you what it looks like. Just hang on a minute. Okay, this is the cover of the book. This is a fabulous book. Everyone should read this book. It's really great education for all the toxins that we're dealing with in modern day life. And she talks about not only electromagnetic frequencies, but things like mold and GMOs, toxins in our soil, our water, our skincare products, cleaning products. She covers everything in here. So it's something everyone should know about so you can avoid that nasty stuff that's going to make you feel bad. So another reason we don't feel good, we live at a different pace than our grandparents did. You know, we're tired because we live in this world that requires and demands never-ending productivity. We don't get enough rest. The Bible stresses the importance of rest, and it says we should put an entire day aside just to rest, but we have stepped away from that. A quote from the book is, "When we move too fast for too long, something inside begins to fray." She says, "Today, artificial light lets us stretch our days far past what is natural. Screens trick our brains into thinking it's still daytime, keeping cortisol high and melatonin low. No wonder so many struggle with anxious thoughts at night or foggy minds in the morning. A simple way back is this: dim the house when the sun sets. Light a candle at dinner. Step outside in the morning and let real daylight hit your eyes before you touch a phone. These little shifts regulate the nervous system in ways that no pill or gadget ever could. Our homes are sealed tight, recycled air humming through vents while the outside shifts and breathes. A 5-minute window crack in February, a slow porch sit in May, a lingering evening in August, each changes the chemistry of your body. Studies show that stepping into fresh air lowers blood pressure, slows the heart rate, and signals the parasympathetic nervous system to exhale." So, pay attention to the environment and realize how much it affects you, indoor and outdoor. It could make a great difference in the way you're feeling. Another reason we don't feel good is the food we eat. You know, the food that your great-grandparents ate was far more nutritious than what you're eating today. It didn't contain toxic ingredients. Our food is loaded with chemicals, artificial colors, artificial flavors, all kinds of garbage that you shouldn't be eating. It's not even food. And if you read the label on the back of a box of Pop-Tarts or any kind of prepackaged food, even cereal, you will see what I'm talking about. Because that stuff that you're reading, you don't even know what it is, and yet you're eating it. So, I made a video titled "The Crap in Our Food." I suggest that you watch that video if you want to learn more about that. And also, there's 2 people you can follow on YouTube that will educate you about food and nutrition. You know, just a wonderful way, a funny way. Bobby Parrish especially, he's funny. I get the biggest kick out of him. He educates you on label reading and knowing what those things on that label are and why you should not be eating them. And then there's the biblical nutritionist. So, if you want to learn more about eating poison food and making the change to healthy food, follow them too. And, you know, the food you eat affects your mood, it affects your attitude, it affects your energy, it affects your mental health, it affects your physical health, it affects so many things. And reading labels and learning these things and making wiser choices can change your life. It really can. Another reason we don't feel good and life isn't fun is that the way we socialize and communicate has changed. Your grandparents, they gave zero attention to a phone unless somebody wanted to talk to them. They weren't scrolling, they were out living. They were talking to people in person, building relationships, building friendships. Their phone was not their companion everywhere they went. They put their heads up and paid attention to their surroundings. Then they didn't miss life, they lived life. They were more connected to their community than their phones, and this gave them a sense of belonging, a sense of support and well-being that is very much missing today. I made a video titled, How Phones and Social Media Destroy Lives, and another one titled, Is Screen Time Stealing Your Family? And in those videos I gave specific reasons why phones and social media can destroy our quality of life. I heard recently some statistic that a large percentage of people from the generation that was part of social media for their entire lives, I don't know if it's Gen Z or Gen X, one of those two, that generation, they wish that they could experience a childhood without phones and social media. Now, why do you think that is? Because they know that something's missing. There's a longing there. Kind of like that anemoia word that we just talked about. And the last reason we don't feel good in life, and the last reason why life just doesn't seem fun, is the cost of living has increased substantially. On the YouTube channel JJ Buckner, in a video titled, The Cost of Living in 2026 is Worse Than People Realize, in that video it was said that if our wages had kept up with just the cost of housing, the average income in the United States would be $160,000 a year. That gives you kind of an idea of how much the prices of things have gone up, and that's not even including the price of food, the cost of a car. That's just if our wages had kept up with the cost of housing. People are sharing their frustrations online. I've come across some of these videos. People are struggling to keep up with their bills. They're losing their homes. Their cars are being repossessed. Some people are living in their cars. And then when we see people on social media who are documenting their lives as millionaires, it can really, make you feel like a failure in comparison. I need to turn this off. It's a distraction, my air conditioner. I hope it'll shut off soon. So, I'm going to paraphrase what J.J. Buckner, I'm assuming that's his name, what he said in that video, the cost of living has increased substantially. No, it's actually, the cost of living in 2026 is worse than people realize. He says we have to focus on our lives and stop looking at the highlighted reel of other people's lives. I thought that was a great way to put it. They're not showing the crap they're going through and what they're really doing with their finances. We're exposed to everyone in the world through social media, and it's keeping up with the Joneses multiplied by 100. That should be more like multiplied by 1,000,000. We have to be happy for our own wins. Find a good friend group, rely on your family, and enjoy life. The only thing he left out of that equation is God. That should have been mentioned first, in my opinion, but it's impossible to feel good and enjoy life when you can't cover your basic necessities. Many people are downsizing. They're combining households. I talked to someone at a yard sale recently who they just combined 2 households into one. Their mother moved in with them, or they moved in with her. I'm not sure which, but people are moving into tiny homes or RVs. Last summer, we sold our home and moved into a 55-plus apartment complex, and beautiful apartments in the $600 range, if you can believe it. I mean, that's not shabby. And, people are doing these things because they have to. Now, ours wasn't financial necessity. It was more like just wanting to simplify our lives and get rid of all the work of a home. the maintenance, the grass mowing, the shoveling snow. We're getting older and we just wanted to break with that. So now the money that we got from our home, we put it in the bank, and that interest that we're drawing is actually paying our rent here. Our house is making us money instead of costing us money. We have no property taxes. We have no maintenance costs on the house. So if I were struggling financially today, what I would do is I would get close to God and I would take that problem to Him in prayer. And He will probably give you some ideas of what you can do to make your cost of living go down. He'll lead you to answers to any problem, actually. Perhaps that boy on social media who became a millionaire at 16, maybe he sat with the Lord in prayer and asked, give me some ideas how I can generate wealth. Something to think about, because God is the source for everything, including wealth. Your best life comes when He's in first place and He's at the center of your life. And if you're not living that way, you're not really living, in my opinion, because you're missing out on a lot of stuff. I could go off on a tangent there, but I need to stay on track because this is getting to be a long video. I really hope this video has inspired you to find ways to reclaim the things that we lost that never should have been left behind. Because, we can't live like our great-grandparents did in a modern world, but we can recover the beauty and the biblical ways and the rhythms of life that God provided for us, God wants us to live by. These are things that make life fun. These are things that make us feel good. I missed quote 4, so I'm going to read it now. Only the presence of God can properly order the things that bring relief. Without Him at the center, we ask too much of the things around us. This is why Christ has to be the place we run to first, because otherwise even good things that can bend under the weight of what only Jesus can carry, even good things can bend under the weight of what only Jesus can carry. We must choose Him as our ultimate place of comfort and refuge in this crazy world. I thought that was a great way to end this video. I highly recommend this book. This is one of the most enjoyable books I've ever read. It's poetry. She writes so beautifully. It almost makes me want to cry. I just love this book. It is, and you will really enjoy her YouTube channel, Faithful Legacy. She sits with a cup of tea and just has this chat with you about all kinds of things, and she's very knowledgeable about what's going on in the world. You'll learn a lot from her. So I'm going to read the back of the book as a closing. More and more people are starting to feel it, the sense that something essential has gone missing in how we live and feel, that in all our progress we've lost the rhythm, beauty, and truth our souls were built for, that modern life may be full, but not always full of what matters. The lost art of living is a faith-rooted invitation to return, not to the past, but to what never should have been left behind. Through honest storytelling, scripture, and practical wisdom, this book will help you rebuild your days around God's presence and seasons, restore sacred rhythms in your homework and inner life, recover beauty, rest, and meaning in the ordinary, break free from the cultural noise clouding your clarity. There's a lot of that. Live with spiritual focus in a time that pulls you away from it. This isn't about escaping the modern world. It's about living in it differently, on purpose, with God at the center. If you felt the pull to join the quiet revival, this book will meet you there. So, Lost Art of Living. Highly recommend it, by Leah Ellen. And I forgot to mention the chemtrails. If you are still thinking that's a conspiracy theory, research weather modification, which is the act of intentionally manipulating or altering the weather, and cloud seeding. Those are two places that you can start with that if you want to have your eyes opened on that topic. So, thanks for listening. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for staying till the end, and I will see you next video.